The division of theology that's devoted to the study of Jesus is usually called Christology. That is, because Jesus is the second person of the Trinity, he is the Christ. And of course, an Orthodox view of biblical Christianity means that we understand Jesus is fully God and fully man. This obviously does not make human sense, because if it seems like he's part one, part the other in our minds, but the record of the scripture is that he is both fully God and fully man. He is as much God as if he were not man. He's as much man as if he were not God, but he is both and in one person. So when we talk about his divine characteristics, his divine attributes, we're talking about his deity, or also known as his divinity. Well, what does the Bible say about Jesus' divinity? Well, first of all, he is eternal. He is not a created being. He's not like Adam. He's not like Satan. He is God. Remember what John wrote in John 1, verse 1? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, we know he's talking about Jesus, because in verse 14 he says, and the Word became flesh and dwelled among us. He tabernacled among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So he was eternal. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 8 says, but of the Son, he says, your throne, O God, is forever. And the scepter of uprightness is the scepter of your kingdom. So the characteristics of the eternal rule and reign of God are ascribed to Jesus. He is eternal. Secondly, he's the creator. In Colossians chapter 1, verse 15, he is the image, the icon, the representation of the invisible God. In other words, God's invisible. We can't see God, but Jesus became man so we can see him. He's the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For by him were all things created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created by him and through him and for him. So he is the creator. He's also the sustainer. Colossians 1:17 says, he is before all things, and in him all things consist. They all hold together. He is omnipotent. He's all powerful. Remember when Jesus in Matthew chapter 8 rebuked the wind and the waves? He said to them, why are you afraid, O you of little faith? Then he rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm, and the men marveled, saying, what manner of man is this, that even the wind and the seas obey him? If he's the creator and the sustainer, he's able to do anything. We see this in his miracles when he revealed that he could feed the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish. And when he could raise the dead, the widow of Nain's son, or calling Lazarus up out of the grave. Not only is he omnipotent, he is omniscient. He knows everything. We're shown this even in his earthly ministry. You get glimpses of it as Jesus matures. And in Mark 2:8, Jesus, immediately perceiving in his spirit that they thus questioned within themselves, said to them, why do you question these things in your heart? We're told there that he could read their minds. John chapter 2 and verse 25, no one needed to bear witness about man, for he himself knew what was in man. Jesus had a complete and omniscient insight into the hearts and characters of men. Jesus said in John 16:30, now we know that you know all things and do not need anyone to question you. Or excuse me, this is someone else speaking to Jesus. Now we know that you need all things and do not need anyone to question you. This is why we believe that you came from God. So the testimony of the Gospels is that Jesus knows everything. He is sovereign. Remember when in the Gospels those 4 men brought their lame friend to Jesus and let him down through the roof. And Jesus forgave his sins. And then he said, which one is harder to do, to forgive sins or to say to a paralytic, rise and walk? And he said, nevertheless, for you to know that the Son of Man has authority. And he spoke and he said, rise, take up your bed and walk. He had all power to forgive and to heal. Jesus' testimony of deity of himself is obvious. In John 8:58, Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Now, Jesus knew what he was saying there when he said, before Abraham was, I am, that he's making the claim to be the Jehovah, the Yahweh of the Old Testament. And lest there be any question, the Jews knew that's what he meant, because that's when they took up stones to stone him, or they tried to throw him off of a cliff. They wanted to kill him because he claimed to be God. But of course, in his resurrection, he proved he is God. So the first thing we need to understand about Jesus is his deity, that he is God. He has always existed. The Orthodox statements of faith say that he eternally proceeds from the Father. In other words, he is begotten, not made. He is eternally begotten of the Father. He proceeds from the Father. In other words, Jesus has always existed. Wherever you find God the Father, you also find God the Son. Throughout eternity, past, present, future, Jesus is God. He's fully God. And because he's fully God, he's able then to save us, but he has to do that by becoming fully man, and we'll talk about that next time.